Hello, in this video I will try to explain the midterm and what to expect when you come in to write it. To start with, the midterm is worth 50 marks, which is more than any single assignment that you'll do this semester. It'll be our second biggest assessment of the semester, aside from the final exam. In terms of the test's location and rules, you will write the midterm test at St. Michael's in room 9, which is my classroom. The test will be written on paper, so it'll be a regular, traditional in-class test. So you cannot use a cell phone or laptops or a Chromebook or an electronic dictionary on the test. You will not have access to your notes as well. Again, it'll be a standard test. I will provide you with the test package, and I can give you rough paper if you want to make rough notes. But aside from that, you're on your own. If you do have any questions while you're writing the test, though, you can certainly let me know, and I can see if I can explain anything that's not clear. In terms of the test dates, you should contact me and let me know if you haven't already about what test date and time you would like to write the test. I provided you with 4 options. You should have already received an email, and this was already posted in the announcements. But you can come in 9:30 on Monday, November 1st, or 12:30 on Monday, November 1st. Or again on Wednesday, November 3rd, you can come in at either 9:30 or 12:30. It's your choice, the afternoon or the morning, whatever fits better for you. I do know that not everyone is going to be able to write on these 2 days. Certainly, I know some students started this course much later into the semester, and I don't expect you to have finished Unit 2 by the beginning of November. So if there's a reason why you can't write the test on November 1st or November 3rd, please contact me, send me an email, and we can talk about an alternative time or date. Okay. All right. In terms of the test format, the test is broken up into 4 parts. So there's multiple choice, there's short answer, there's reading response questions, and there's a paragraph answer. In terms of how that will look and in terms of what to study, we can take a look at the test content. And so you've got Unit 1 and Unit 2 here. So if you go back over the content of each of the activities in Unit 1 and Unit 2, you should have a good understanding of what we have learned and what will be on the test. So for example, in Unit 1, Activity 1, we covered information paragraphs, and so I would expect you to know the purpose and the different parts of an information paragraph. In Unit 1, Activity 2, we looked at listening and speaking strategies, so I would expect you to know the listening and speaking strategies. In Activity 3, we looked at narrative essays, so I would expect you to know the different elements that make up a narrative essay. In terms of Unit 2, we have focused on story elements, and so in Activity 1, we looked at character and plot archetypes and the different modern genres that we see in stories that are told today. So I would expect you to know the archetypes and the genres. In Activity 2, we looked at specifically character, plot, setting, point of view, and theme, kind of the 5 big story elements. So I would expect you to know how each one of those works. So I would expect you to know things like flat and round and static and dynamic characters. I would expect you to know the different types of conflict in a plot. I would expect you to know the different parts of a setting that we looked at, things like location, time period, mood, point of view. I'd expect you to know the 3 points of view, so first person, third person observant, and third person omniscient. And then in terms of theme, I would expect you to understand that a theme is an overall message or lesson that is presented in a story. In terms of Activity 3, we looked at 4 different literary lenses. So they were the reader response lens, the historical biographical lens, the psychological lens, and the gender lens. So I would expect you to have a general understanding of how each of those lenses works and how you would apply them to a story. And then lastly, in Activity 4, We looked at film elements, so I would expect you to know things like camera distances and angles, lighting, and sound. Okay. In terms of the reading response on the test, what I would expect you to be able to do is I would expect you to be able to read a short story and then demonstrate that you understand the content, so that you understand and you know what happened in the story. I could also ask you to identify archetypes or to tell me what the genre of the story is. So I would expect you to be able to apply archetypes and genre. And then lastly, I would expect you to be able to apply story elements to the story. So I would expect you to be able to discuss the characters, to identify the conflicts, to describe the mood, to identify the point of view, and to explain the overall theme of a story. So again, I will give you a short story, and you will show me you understand what it's about, and that you can apply the different story elements that we've talked about in Unit 2. And then lastly, there's a paragraph answer, and I will expect you to write a properly structured paragraph, approximately 10 sentences, stating your opinion on a topic covered in this course so far. And I would expect you to provide examples to support yourself. The most important part of the paragraph answer is, did you write a proper paragraph? The paragraph answer is the communication section of the test. So that's where I'm judging your ability to write proper and complete sentences and to clearly state your points, in this case your opinion, and back it up with examples. The rest of the test, the multiple choice, the short answer, the reader response questions, your grammar and spelling are not as important in those sections. What's important is, did you show that you knew the answer to the question? But for this last bit, the paragraph, make sure that you're writing proper sentences and a proper paragraph. All right, one last bit, and this is important for the content. Any topics not listed will not be on the midterm test. So I know this is a fair bit of material here on Unit 1 and Unit 2. It's a lot to study, I know, but it's not everything. So like, for example, if you go back to Unit 1, Activity 1, you'll see in the content that we discussed the research process and how to properly search websites. Well, that's not mentioned here. So if it's not mentioned in the course content, in the test content, then I will not ask you about it. So if you're going over the different activities and you notice things that are not listed here, don't worry about it. You don't have to study it. With that said, to hopefully make things easier in terms of studying, I provided you 3 exercises here. So you've got the Unit 1 review questions. You've got the Unit 2 review questions. So if we open them up, what I did was I took all of the topics that you need to know and just turned them into a basic question. So you've got things like, explain the 3 purposes for an information paragraph, identify the different parts of an information paragraph. Well, if you go back to Unit 1, Activity 1, you can find those right in the content. So for these questions, you can literally go back into the content of each activity and just pretty much copy out the answers. And you can do your answers in point form in any way you like. What you're doing here is you're creating your notes to study. So if you answer these 6 questions, you know what I want you to know about Unit 1. And Unit 1 was a rather small unit, so there's not a lot of questions here. For Unit 2, it's a bit bigger review here. There's 20 questions. So if you go through these 20 questions, for example, identify the term archetype, explain the 7 character archetypes discussed in Unit 2, Activity 1. If you answer these questions just in point form, you're creating your notes to understand, to kind of go over and to study for the test. One thing I'll say, because I don't want a question like this one right here to scare you. It says, explain the 7 character archetypes discussed in Unit 2, Activity 1. I would never ask you on the test to tell me 7 different archetypes all at once. I would never ask you, for example, with the literary lenses here. It says identify the 4 literary lenses and discuss them. I would never ask you to apply all 4 literary lenses in one question. What I could do, though, is I could ask you, like if we go back to the 7 character archetypes, I could ask you in a multiple choice question, which one of the following is one of the character archetypes? Or I could ask you in a short answer question to explain 2 or 3 of the character archetypes. Like I said, I'll never ask you to explain all 7 at once, but it is a good idea to know the 7 so that if it comes up in a multiple choice question or if it comes up in a short answer question, you have everything you need to answer the question. I hope that makes sense. Again, what I would say is if you can answer the Unit 1 and Unit 2 review questions, you have made your study notes that you can then review to prepare for the test. The last bit here is it says reading response questions. And so I've given you practice reading response questions. And if we take a look at that, it says here, read the short story, The Sniper, on the second and third page. After reading the story, answer the following questions. Write your answers in full sentences. So here's the story right here, The Sniper. And so you can read it on page 2 and 3 here. And then you can answer these questions. On your test, I'm going to give you a different story. It will not be The Sniper, okay? But if you can read The Sniper here and you can answer these 7 questions, you should feel pretty good that you can answer very similar type questions on the test. Because when I give you a story to read on the test, these are the types of questions that I would ask. I could ask you about the genre of the story. I could ask you about a character archetype in the story. I could ask you whether a character was flat or round or static or dynamic. I could ask you to describe the mood or identify conflicts and give examples. I could certainly ask you what is the point of view in the story. And I could ask you your opinion about the theme, or what do you think the major message or lesson is in the story. I'm not going to ask you all of these questions. On the test, I'd probably only ask you 3, 4, maximum 5 questions about the story. So I wouldn't expect you to answer all of these for one story. But if you can do it for The Sniper, you would have a good idea of the types of questions that I would ask on the test. I hope that makes sense. You'll notice that these are all related to the story elements that we covered in Unit 2. So what I'm doing in the reading response is I'm asking you to look at a story and show me once again that you can apply the story elements. With that said, if you've got any questions about the test, please let me know. What's most important is that you're in contact with me and that I know when you're coming in to write the test. So please, if you haven't contacted me yet, please do. All right, thanks and good luck studying.